Everyone on Star Trek is gay. Rhianna Pratchett and Neil Gaiman trashes BBC's Discworld adaptation. And is there any hope for He-Man on Netflix? Today on Midnight's Edge in the morning.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, whatever it is where you are. My name is Tom Connors. With me is the boss man, Andre. How are you doing this morning?
Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
Doing the best I can, and that's about all you're going to get out of me at this point. With us is a very special guest. I'm honored to welcome Michael from Retroblasting. I couldn't even tell. Michael from Retroblasting. Welcome to Midnight's Edge.
Thank you, Tom. It's actually a really big honor to be here as well. I love Midnight's Edge, have for many years, and to find out that, Tom, you were a fan of Retroblasting was just it was so cool to find that out. So thanks for having me on the show.
Oh yeah, I found your channel years ago, and I've been an avid viewer ever since. And in fact, it's come in handy. Your videos have come in handy, I should say, a couple times during our own work, because I brought up to Andre how the toys for Star Trek kind of went, where they didn't have the Wrath of Khan toys, but they did for Part 3 and so on. And I learned all that from your video long before any other documentaries had been done on the subject. So. Yeah,
and I learned that in my own childhood frustration as the years went by and no Wrath of Khan toys came out. So, yeah, I kind of data dumped on that one. A lot of childhood therapy went into that video. So,
and then of course that same situation came up again when Kurtzman, I believe it was, right, Andre, who was trying to play off, oh, the Trek toys have never been big sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to rewrite history, which, as we shall see, is a typical feature of those of Kurtzman's basic attitude on life. But what's good is that we're big fans of your channel as well, and
Absolutely.
It has greatly helped us with our research, especially in terms of Star Trek, actually, because that's like a merchandising machine, and when we needed some pointers and weren't entirely sure of the detailed history of Star Trek and merchandise, well, that's where Retroblasting came in.
Yep.
Oh, I'm honored to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just brought up, I'm like, well, here's the thing is you could say that, but it's not true because the problem was they didn't have the toys for Wrath of Khan and Star Trek 4 and the ones that actually appealed to kids.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was such a mess. And it's funny when they say that Star Trek toys don't sell now because you want to go, does your memory only go as far back as 2009? Because that's when Star Trek toys stopped selling, when they made them from the first movie with J.J. Abrams. That was where it failed. Yeah.
Because aside from Ninja Turtles, Playmates, that was their biggest brand probably, was the Star Trek line for how many years now?
Oh my gosh, it was at least the better part of a decade, if not more, decade to decade and a half. Yeah.
So needless to say, your research helped us out there, and as you said before, we were one of the channels you actually have referenced us a couple times, I think, in your videos, which. I was like, ooh, I got giddy that one video recently. I think it was your Fandom Menace video, I think it was.
Yes. I've referenced you in that and another one, I think, as well. But it's because Midnight's Edge, not to sit here and fan gush too much about the channel that I've been asked to be on. But you guys have a very direct analytical approach to the facts, evidence that you present. So you set your videos up in a way where you say, here's what we've learned. Here's what we take away from it based on everything we've also collected from the last few months to the last year. You guys connect dots. And then you say, these are the likely probabilities that can happen from learning this information. These are the directions that Hollywood might go with this decision or this rumor or whatever. That's very unique to you guys, and it's very precise, and I love the precision, and that's why I keep coming back.
And of course, you say that when I'm about to bring in our own little Tasmanian devil himself. Welcome, Rob. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. I said,
the class just went out the window. No, just kidding.
Oh, that's yeah. That's hey, like I always say, it's all if I didn't have Tom and Andre to reel me back in, who knows what would happen.
Welcome, Rob. And about that, first, I have to say thank you, Retroblasting, for getting it. That is indeed what we do. Say, okay, this is what happens. This is what happens. After connecting dots, they are now in a position where they're at this pathway, and these are the roads available to them.
Yes.
We do not know necessarily which way they will go down, but this road is contingent upon this, and this road is contingent upon that.
Yes.
That is what we say very meticulously. And then you have Drekkies coming in saying, Midnight's Edge predicted that this and that, and said that Discovery was going to be cancelled every season. No, we never said that.
Uh-huh. Yep, but I have learned as a YouTuber for the last 8.5 years, and you guys know this as well. I'm just preaching to the choir here, but people build up narratives and then they ignore facts to support the narratives that they want to impose on something that they don't like in the YouTube space. So if they don't like you, they'll impose a narrative that you always predict negative things, and it's like no, you're cherry picking. And you're leaving it out of context, so.
Yeah. And there are some out there who do enjoy this new Trek who actually aren't complete morons.
Right.
Once in a while, I'll run into them. And once in a while, I will run into them.
Once in a blue moon.
And you can have a decent conversation with them. But yeah, like Max Mercer says, though, holy shit. Baseline by what the hell is Doomcock waiting for? Release Harvey Cthulhu now.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
You say that like there's something wrong with that, Tom. Oh my.
That's the best George Takei impression I've ever heard. Oh my god.
Well,
George. Oh, I got to tell you, it's not all about you. It's about me.
Oh, don't I know it, you big blowhard? And I know a thing about blowing hard. I'm
not even going there. I'm going to my dressing room now. Take care. But yeah, anyway, no. We're not going to get into meat here.
And I did that George Takei impression for George's husband, Brad. Actually, he said that was incredible. That's amazing. I met George at a book signing.
As long as he's not calling you for phone sex, then I think
yeah,
okay.
that's good.
But all joking aside, I guess that's a good place to start getting into this first article here.
Yes.
And our good friends over at Bounding Into Comics, of course, reported on this. Drew actually wrote this article. Star Wars lore, or Star Wars, Jesus. It might as well be Star Wars now, because if you've seen the first episode
what's the difference in these days?
Discovery, yeah. And I've even seen articles written as that's like a good thing. Like, Dave, have you seen this at all, Andre?
Oh, for goodness
I have,
sake.
yeah. Basically, you always had like this historical joke that the fans are super into either Star Trek or Star Wars. And then you have their girlfriends and the casuals who can't tell the difference between the two. Reference Big Bang Theory and a whole host of other things. Well, now it's true. They're the same thing.
Except now we can't, the fans can't tell the difference anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the headline, though, the real headline. Star Trek Lower Decks showrunner, which we saw in Las Vegas, right, Rob? With
yes.
You, me, a guy from Trek Yards, and some lady who walked out of the line. And that was it. There was nobody else there for that panel. And I mean, every technical panel was loaded to the brim. You had people lined up at even some of the sub-level technical panels, like the guy who happened to design the computer panel for Star Trek season 6 of TNG. His panel, like, the people were full for, but as soon as they announced the next panel is Star Trek Lower Decks, everybody in the room got up and collectively walked out.
Well, and Mike McMahon actually, listen, I'm sure he seemed like a pretty nice guy. I don't know him personally, but he's been desperate to talk to anybody. He's been talking to just about anybody. I mean, I'm pretty sure if there's a guy on a street corner. Well,
speaking of Trek Yards, he was over on their channel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not saying that, Trek Yards is bottom barrel. We know those guys. They're actually really good guys, but at the same time,
Trek Yard guys are good guys, and they're fans of Star Trek, and we may have our differences in opinion, but they do really, really well what they do.
They know the ships. They know
their
stuff,
ships.
Yeah.
They're
like you said,
unparalleled at that.
But like I said, at the same time, I'm like, the apathy in the air for Lower Decks is palpable.
Well, before we get into this article, Michael, you've seen the show, and this is this and Picard are the only two new shows you've seen, right?
Yeah, I tried to watch Discovery, and I bailed out very early on that one. I mean, spore drives, and no, I wasn't doing that, and I find it hilarious that they then had to literally exile the entire cast.
What's wrong with mushrooms in space, man?
Yeah, it's like, oh crap, send them to the year 3000 and forget about them. It's like, yeah, you guys messed up. But yes, I've watched Picard and I've watched Lower Decks, and here's where my head is just in general with Lower Decks. I wouldn't have an issue with a Star Trek comedy, even especially animated, if there wasn't two things going on. One, this insistence from the showrunners that it's canon, and two, the fact that it's showrunners. I know the Rick and Morty guy is not in the group with Kurtzman and everybody else, but he's working under the auspice of the Kurtzman crew. He's been brought in to do this under their watch, and those guys, Kurtzman and people of his ilk, they are like art students that haven't learned how to paint still life, and they already want to do avant-garde. And the whole point of art school is that, they teach you have to learn the fundamentals, you have to learn the rules before you can be allowed to break them. You have to show mastery of the rules. And
walk before you can run, really.
Yes, walk before you can run. And they have proven time and time again that they do not know how to make Star Trek walk. They have not made one single Star Trek product between Discovery and Picard that can walk. And so that when they then say, we're going to do an animated comedy now, and it's going to be canon, that you haven't built up enough credibility with the audience to do that. Especially the canon part, which is just superfluous. So I have a real problem with that. And then the other part that I have a problem with is, even though it's a comedy, I think they've missed the boat on characterization of all the cast overall, because if you look at the Orville is Star Trek comedy while still maintaining people of the future. They are still, by and large, people of the future in their thoughts and actions and the way they're portrayed. Star Trek Lower Decks it's a bunch of 20-something millennials high on pixie sticks, and their dialogue and everything is very contemporary to 2020 and internet culture. It doesn't feel like the future, It's a meme. Meme. Yes. It's a meme.
It's a Star Trek meme, is what it is. And a lot of these bits are being written as memes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as I've explained, I had to explain to a friend what the show was. And I basically said it's fart joke, reference, Rick and Morty stolen joke, fart joke reference. And then somebody reminded me there's a bunch of dick jokes, so I forgot to throw in a few dick jokes here and there. But that's really all it is. And I use the term joke loosely because jokes tend to have to be funny, and I get it. Comedy is subjective. But really, before we get too far down the line, this is the actual quote that has everybody kind of scratching their heads. And this is, what's his name, McMahon or whatever, saying, for me and for the writers, as we were making this, we didn't intentionally mean for anybody to be strictly heteronormative, if that's a word, or straight or cis. Oh, I hate that word. Every Starfleet officer is. Why would you even say that? Because that's basically
this whole
thing 3 times in a row.
This whole cis word just seems to crop up within the last 6 months. I'm like, what? Wait a minute.
No, what it is. But okay, let's get let's.
Yeah, let
Tom,
me finish.
Sorry about
finish
that.
reading, and we will get into exactly.
Every Starfleet officer is probably at the baseline bisexual in a way. That being said, I'm not the most amazing person at writing those kinds of stories. I think we get a little bit better about it the second season. So it basically is insinuating they've already been working on the second season.
Which we know, but there's more. It's the second part of the quote in the Bounding into Comic article.
Let me see here.
If not, I got it here, because these comments initially they hail from Variety magazine, and they were also referenced by Trek Movie. And after this quote, he then confirmed this area of sexuality will be something they will be addressing in season 2. And for those who aren't aware, season 2 was greenlit the same time as season 1. The two were greenlit at the same time, and so work on season 2 is already well on the way. It was always going to be. There would always be minimum 2 seasons. This was clear from day one. Anyway, he then continues to say, it's something I think we need to be better about. If there's anything I can say about inclusiveness, whether it's about sex or gender or race or anything, is that I know that I can always learn more and be better about it. And I'm always trying to do that. This is one of those cases where we could have done a better job of explicitly stating the things that the writers always knew about Mariner. It seeps in there in little ways, which even irritates me even more. Like, you start off the season with Mariner saying, wow, she's like the hottest girl on the ship. Are you nervous? That's one of her first lines. But doesn't put a stake in the ground, which I wish we had done a little bit more explicitly. It's always a learning experience. We're going to be trying to be better about it, and we are more explicit about it in the second season. So in short, what he's saying, he's apologizing for the characters not being explicitly bisexual and gay enough, but he promises to amend that for season 2, where that will take place front and center.
So essentially they're setting up Mariner bumping bagels with another crew member. Like, okay, there you go.
Well, what's funny is this is the opposite of what we heard on every other show. Like, this is the one time they've keyed in on this one thing, and they're apologizing for not doing it enough, to where on everything else it's like, oh, we're sorry, this year we promise it's going to be more like old Trek.
But if they believe that this is the way things are going to be in the future, in the 25th century or whatever it is, wouldn't those characters by that point have made it secondhand when they get up in the morning, so they wouldn't be explicitly harping on it all the time? It would just be normal.
Exactly. That's the point we always bring up, is that these writers and creators are more worried about what's between these characters' legs, the color of their skin, these type of things, than they actually are about creating good characters. And right there in that thing that Andre just read, he flat out said, oh, she's the hottest one on the ship. We've heard now that she's the hottest one, the best one. She's just being a fuck up on purpose. I mean, how many other great things can you lavish upon this character who's already better than the best there already is?
Award-winning,
annoying. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Award-winning chef. I mean, what else? Mechanic. I mean, there's no shortage. You know that there is no bottom to this well.
But this whole like ambiguous bullshit is the same kind of crap that got us to the conversations about the whole thing with Ernie and Bert. And then like last year when there was the whole thing like, oh, they can be gay, there's nothing wrong. Like, no, there was a lot of people that come out, and including that were friends of mine, who said the same thing. The problem that they ran into with Ernie and Bert all these years was it shouldn't fucking matter. A, it's a kid's show. Mm-hmm. And B, it just feeds into that stereotype that two men can't live together without being gay. Something they fought against for years and years and years and years, that it's just a stereotype that just because it's on the other side of it. But it's the point being that you have this mentality feeding into, they want to make this fantasy world among every character that has to do with their sexuality, when that's not the problem. Trek has already covered this shit. Just like Michael said, they treat it like it's a secondary thing. Mm-hmm. Just like that Enterprise episode, like with Trip, where he you know the one I'm talking about, Rob, with the culture that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the one where they put the hands in the crystals and they reproduce. That's how the male carries the fetus. That one.
I was thinking that, or am I getting it mixed up with a TNG episode where there's 3 different?
There's a TNG episode I remember.
Okay.
There's an Enterprise episode. You're thinking of the Enterprise episode where you need like a third person to mate between the male and the female.
Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of.
That's Enterprise. I think it was called Cogenitor.
Oh yeah, that's one.
Okay. So there's Go ahead.
There's also the TNG episode where there's the race of androgynous aliens.
Outcast.
Outcast, and Riker falls in love with one of them, I think, and tries to defend them from their own culture. And yeah, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No. I mean, and that's my point, is that's even one of the newer episodes, and that's already almost 20 years old now. And you go back all the way to some of the TOS stuff and beyond. Like, they've covered this stuff, and we even saw it at STLV in Las Vegas when, all the newer cast was trying to tote all their, diversity and isms up on stage and acting like they were the first to discover this shit. You had what's-his-face who played Dr. Phlox is like, now, wait a minute.
John Billingsley,
John Billingsley jumped in, and a few others jumped in and kind of gave him some shit because they're like, we were pretty progressive for our time too, kind of thing.
Well, you're dealing with. Sorry, go ahead.
Carry on. I'll have my say afterwards.
Okay, I was just going to say you're dealing with a generation of Trek showrunners and Trek media reviewers that. Their memory doesn't go back beyond 2009, whether conveniently or inconveniently. There was a guy on that terrible website Inverse that just did he did a headline that said, "You need to watch the most underrated sci-fi sequel of all time." And of course, when you go past the clickbait headline, he's talking about The Wrath of Khan. And that was just a few days ago. And it's like, really? This is an underrated movie? What are we talking about here? I think it's endemic of the leadership that's controlling the levers of Star Trek these days.
That is indeed right, because there's a bigger game being played out right here, and it all goes back to Rob. You noticed the words and you reacted to them like cis and all of these other vocabulary, which is completely and utterly unscientific. There is no scientific basis behind those words whatsoever. It is pure ideology. It is ideology that actually came from the 70s, which is where much of this was invented. But no one paid attention to it then because it was complete and utter bullcrap, and it was recognized as such. But it's really, really gotten a hold in both academia and among the elites and everything in the last 6 years. And to many of these writers, especially the people that are running Star Trek right now, and who, as you guys who were at Star Trek Las Vegas last year pointed out, that they all had this competition, we were so progressive, we were much more progressive than you are, and the old guys had to say that hey, actually we were a bit progressive too. Well, the new guys, they don't know that, because according to them, history started in 2016, and before then was just some vague distant past that doesn't matter anymore. Their point of view, what's going on is that we've been living in the Handmaid's Tale in a fascist dictatorship in all of history, or rather, since the Orange Man Bad, who is very orange and very bad, got elected into office. And then things went to hell, and then history started, and everything new and everything progressive is brand new and has never happened before. That's kind of what's going on here. That's what it all boils down to. And Star Trek is very, very in with the establishment, let's say. So yeah, they're just scoring for brownie points and doing everything that's in the.
But the thing is though, I've actually, I've taken psychology. I've studied psychology a little bit, anthropology. There's something called the Kinsey scale, I believe it is. I believe it's where everybody's sexuality falls somewhere along that. It's not everybody's either gay or straight or somewhere in the middle. People have degrees, and there is this idea that for women it is more permeable, that they're a little bit more open-minded to being somewhere along the scale than men are. Okay, I that's fine. But this whole thing is, you cannot fight biology or your genetic programming. I mean, to say that everyone, make a blanket statement, everyone is baseline bisexual, no, they aren't.
That's ideology.
Well, that's because they're trying to change the whole. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
there's zero science to back that up. None at all. But it's all part of the ideology, which is very anti-family, which is a very clear anti-family agenda. And this is a very good way to achieve that.
Well, it's not so much anti-family. It's just
Well, yes,
now
it is.
they want to appeal to everybody. They want to appeal to everybody. They want to make sure nobody is left out. And what you're doing is you're making a joke out of it. You're making an absolute joke. The best way you can. I hate to use Kramer as an example from Seinfeld. Remember when he said, handicapped people want to be treated like everybody else, and yeah, they don't want special parking spaces. I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But at the same time, by calling attention to it, by planting a flag and saying and putting a label on yourself, hi, I'm so and so, and I'm gay, or I'm bisexual, I'm this and this. You're for a generation that doesn't believe in labels. I'm seeing an awful lot of labels here, guys.
Well, they do believe in labels. That's what this whole ideology is all about. Labels. It's all about dividing people into groups and labeling them like that. That's what they're all about. They're all about labels. Your identity begins and ends with your label.
That's what I don't understand about using Star Trek and over-indexing on this. Star Trek has, they've addressed these issues in past series prior to the Abrams Kelvinverse stuff. As we've said, Enterprise and TNG and things like that. But they had so many other stories to tell, other types of stories that they mixed in there as well. Star Trek was about infinite possibilities for all kinds of scenarios. So this over focus, this emphasis on this one, narrow story plot or characterization focus is starting to become very wearing. And that's, look, I'm going to sit here and say, like all of us on the panel right now, I don't have an issue with, well-written representation. But what I also am concerned about is people who cannot get out of their own way with their writing, where they just constantly grind on one issue with a franchise like Star Trek, where Star Trek has thousands of story possibilities. That's the advantage of it as a franchise, and they're not using that.
You're taking a very large universe and you're making it small.
Yeah, and I want to address this super chat here before, and not to jump.
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, but Kath the Dragon sends in 10. That's 10 pounds. Cis here is short for cisgender, which loosely means not transgender. To say cis isn't a real concept is denying trans people exist, which we demonstrably do. I don't know about saying cis isn't a real concept, but here's the thing you have is people changing definitions again to fit their feelings, which nobody has ever. First of all, if you're denying that transgender people exist, then there wouldn't be a word such as transgender, right? And to change the word straight to cisgender to just appeal to a very small subgroup is really short-sighted. And it's just go ahead, Andre. Yeah.
No, here's what I was going to say. That's no one. I believe I speak for all when I say that no one here doubts the existence of transgenders, and none of us have any issues with transgenders, not in the slightest. That's not what this is about at all. However, I disagree that the word cis is required to mean not transgender.
Right.
On the contrary, personally, to me, I do not understand how heterosexual means not transgender.
Exactly my point. Like making new words is not going to make a difference. Like I don't see the equivalence there.
I do see the equivalent of it. I see the meaning, because
I get what he's saying, but I don't see why you have to make up a new word. That's my point.
Well, I think I do, because all goes with the ideology. Because if you have a word like heterosexual, then that kind of implies that this is the majority and this is normal. Whereas if you change that with cis, meaning non-trans, then you have degraded heterosexual from normal and majority. Now, cisgender is just one of the other 30 or 50 or whatever something genders there are out there. I think that is a big part of it. But outside of that, I do not understand why heterosexual is not perfectly capable of describing not transgender every bit as well as cisgender, which is a purely ideological term.
Right.
See, now,
Go ahead, Rob.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there. But the thing is, though, I mean, are we talking? We're not talking so much gender. We're talking about sexual preference.
In this article, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Cisgender. I mean, whether you identify as male, female, or a doorknob, I don't care. What they're conflating here is your identity versus your preference. Okay.
Yeah. Rob, I have to warn you, though, that ever since the hearing of the new High Justice or Supreme Justice Judge, the ACB or whatever her name is, ever since her using the term sexual preference has now become bigot, apparently.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, because she used it, and that was bad. That Biden has used it a million times doesn't matter. It became bad the moment she did it.
And the people who say that can bite me. Okay,
but anyway, that's also completely besides the point here, because like none of this that they're baseline bisexual doesn't really have anything to do with trans or cis or anything.
But that again, they're talking about her. They're not talking about her gender. They're talking about her preference, whether she wants to go, whether she wants to go to bed with a man, woman, or a giant slug or whatever the hell it is. That they're talking again. They're conflate. It's this whole conflation that is that's the problem.
You've also got Starfleet crewmen and women from all different planets and systems. Are you going to tell me that with all the conflicts we saw between the Klingon culture with Worf's issues with the rest of the crew and TNG, that you're not going to run into issues where, hey, guess what? These races, these aliens that we have in Starfleet, in our starship serving as ensigns and tactical and whatever, they don't believe in baseline bisexual. Their culture is totally different. But you're going to blanket statement that everybody in Star Trek, Starfleet is this one thing.
That's Outcast again. Come back to TNG Outcast.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the people who have no identity, sexual identity, and so what's their preference? We don't know. Like I said, they have, what that's the big thing. And actually the Orville already addressed this. There was I can't remember, there was a scientist. He was from Bortus's the plane was a Moclan, and Moclan, they're a single gender species.
Right.
See, that's how you do it. That's Star Trek right there. That's the moment when I was won over to the Orville was there, how they treated trans issues and gender issues, and how beautifully they did it. No condemnation. No. There was nothing wrong or anything like that, but they addressed all the prejudice and just did a really balanced view, and they let the viewer decide. Yes. That's how it's supposed to be done.
He stood
Kudos to the Orville.
Yes, he stood. He said, "I am he goes, I know I'm from a single gender species. I know this is frowned upon, and I'll be an outcast, but I am attracted to women." And that was it. And like I said, and it just evolved. The episode evolved from there, and it was a brilliant episode. Absolutely brilliant. They didn't preach. They didn't make you feel guilty about what your own personal beliefs was. It says, this is our story. A, B, C, D. Okay. And then it was masterfully done. Masterfully.
Well, and I think to get back to the whole topic at hand here, is I think what it really boils down to, once again, as usual, is you can have episodes and storylines that revolve around certain elements like this, but to really dumb it down and to make this the only thing your show's about just starts to really show how little imagination they really have and how obsessed they are with this on a constant basis. This is all we ever hear about every single day out of everybody out of Hollywood and who's behind all these shows. And it's not just Star Trek, it's everything. Star Wars, Doctor Who and all the other franchises now, where it's become more important to grandstand on this whole ideal and ideology than it is to actually tell us a decent story or make decent Star Trek, and then maybe everybody would enjoy it. then you wouldn't have the bickering, you wouldn't have the divisiveness,
You
you
know,
wouldn't have all the bullshit.
But now it's not about making people enjoy it. It's about making a statement. And on that note, we have a couple more super chats that I want to get
we should get to the
from
super
everyone.
chats, yeah.
But there are a couple of people that are debating, so we should have to address that. Following up from let's see. The super chat that came from Kath the Dragon that debated for the term cis and cisgender. We got a response from Theodore McCarthy, and this isn't going to be very popular, but he sent it, so I'm going to say it. The point of using cis is to pretend the normal is abnormal, and the abnormal is normal. Attacking normalness is what the left has been about since the Enlightenment. And not necessarily in response to that, but Kath the Dragon sent us another £10 saying, and this was about our confusion about the term cis. Then Kath says, cis is not the same as hetero. They have never meant the same thing. Hetero is about orientation. Cis is about identity. If someone is conflating them, they're using the words wrong.
Well, I see words being conflated all the time, and that's the problem.
Why should I have to identify anything, though? Whose business is it besides mine and the person I'm with?
I identify as a basketball.
Because it's part of the ideological framework.
And that's the thing that bothers me, and that's where I've brought this up before, and I've talked to people who are obviously not straight, and they've said the same thing. For years, we fought and fought and fought to get out from underneath these labels, a lesbian label, a gay label, a trans label, what have you, and now all of a sudden it's recognized my label, and it's driving certain parts of the community nuts to the point where it's even driven stakes and divisiveness inside the non-straight, in quotations, community. I mean, and that's the stupid part. To me, it all feels like it's a bunch of shit to divide people more and fucking more, when it felt like going into the 90s and shit, we had all kind of tossed away a lot of our differences. And I don't understand where a lot of this divisiveness came back in. I mean, I do have my ideas, but I don't want to get down those roads in this show. Well, but go ahead, Rob, and then we need to get back into the super chats real quick.
Do you think the AIDS crisis and putting a lot of the taboos back on sex and sexuality, do you think that contributed a lot to this, what we're seeing now? Because it just seems like as soon as we couldn't talk about sex anymore, oh my God, then everybody's just brains exploded.
I don't think it has anything to do with it.
I don't remember talking about sex ever being much of a problem in the
US. I think that's like the AIDS epidemic of the 80s. Of course, it's still an AIDS epidemic, but like it was really bad in the 80s, and it was made even worse because it was predominantly associated with the gay communities, even though everyone could get it. But I don't think that has anything at all to do with where we are at right now. Nothing. But since we started on the super chats, we have a good deal more to go through, so I'm just going to go through them quickly. The Big Red Bear sent us $5 Canadian saying the baseline is bi. Remember when Star Trek was based on science? Not all behavior is a social construct all the time. Bisexuals exist. Not all people are bi. And according to Christy, sent us a $2 sticker with a cute little doggy. Thank you so much.
You mean it's not poop?
No, for a change. And so now in this case, it was the poop machine instead. And Mr. Pickle Trunk sent us $5 Canadian saying lower decks would be perfectly fine if one condition was met. If we also had a real Star Trek show in production at the same time, I'd be okay with it. I think that's a point of view many can get behind. Sadly, we don't, so that's where we are. And William Jones sent us $5 saying, I'm in the mood for some real Star Trek. So, anyone know when the Orville releases? No, but I'm counting days.
I know Seth had said they had to finish shooting because unfortunately when all this stuff come down...
Yeah.
But
Yeah, wow.
Mr. Tickle Trunk sent us 3 in a row, so thanks so much. Saying, "Preach, Tom, you magnificent bastard," in reference to something you said before.
oh, it was
And
when I was
then,
going off. Yeah.
modern Trek is regressive. Never call it progressive. And there's an argument to be made for that.
Mhm.
And then, progressive too? No. Modern is regressive. Progress is not separating people. Robert Meyer Burnett is the real OG progressive. We all belong. Yes, I agree with that. Robert Meyer Burnett is a good man. And of us YouTubers, he is certainly among the best of us, I would say. And where progressives are concerned, look to him. There is no better. And Stephen Otten is sending us $5 saying, "So busy trying to be progressive that they've forgotten to make a good show. I never thought I'd say this, but F Star Trek. Bring back the Orville." Miranda Sinistra sent us $5 saying, "Representation is fine, pandering isn't."
Mhm.
Evan Gerhardt sent us $5 saying, "The Orville did buy really well in that episode with Rob Lowe." Yeah, you see, Orville did that too. Orville is the real Trek.
Did you ever, Tom? Do you remember Drawn Together?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember they actually did a whole thing about representation and everything, but they actually made it funny and all the labels that are associated with it. But they actually pointed, because it's satire, but they pointed out the absurdity of a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if Star Trek if Lower Decks wants to do that, then fine, great. But they're not doing that. All they're doing is they're just putting it in your face, and they're just saying, "What, you don't agree with us? Ha! You must be some kind of bigot."
Well, because Lower Decks should have been Orville.
Yeah.
And speaking of Orville, Michael, have you ever gotten a chance to see the Orville yet?
Oh, I've seen every episode of the Orville. I think the Orville is a fabulous show. And it's what we wanted Star Trek to still be. And I think it was Seth MacFarlane. I think he almost said it in so many words. It was his response to where Star Trek had gone. It was like him reminding society of what Star Trek is supposed to be with a little humor thrown in. Whereas Lower Decks, on the other hand, is just, like I said, it's just frantic. I like Rick and Morty as a thing, but I don't want Rick and Morty on top of Star Trek, unless it's explicitly a Robot Chicken style non-canon product, which they're insisting that can't be the case. And so you can't look at it as a fun thing or an experiment when you're a Star Trek fan. You're looking at it going, they're trying to square peg this into the round hole of Star Trek continuity, and it's not classy, it's not watchable. I have a real issue with the tone and the pacing of that show. I do not think it's going to age well. It is very much for a surgically narrow audience of today's culture. That age group. Yeah.
It's a
not for
design.
everybody.
It's a design by committee version of Rick and Morty with a Star Trek veneer.
Yes.
It's Alex Kurtzman saying that Ron and Marty thing is popular. Can we do that with Star Trek? That's pretty much. I don't have any evidence, but I'm pretty sure that's how it came about.
Honestly, I would actually go as far as to say, oh, they did Orville. That Family Guy did Orville. Well, fuck that. I'll get one of the Rick and Morty guys to come do Star Trek for me then. I think that's really as far as it went.
Yeah, but what's too bad about that, of course, is that Seth MacFarlane is a true Star Trek,
Exactly.
aficionado. Like he's an expert on the same level as some YouTubers we know who are Star Trek devotees, and so he knew what Star Trek's essence was when he did Orville. All of the DNA of Star Trek is in the Orville, and then just a nice sprinkling of humor just to make it a little different. But Lower Decks is a huge misfire. Huge misfire.
Yeah. I just want to run through the rest of the super chats on this topic before we move on to the next. Tell Layman sent us $10 saying, "I have nothing against gay, bi, or transgender people, but our society is so divided today that it's time to say explicitly who your audience is. The new Trek is directed at LGBT plus people." For that, I will certainly say that I agree that none of us have anything against gay, bi, or transgender people, just to emphasize that.
Yeah, that's not even the point here. But if you're going to make a show that only appeals to a very, very, very small group of people, then you're only going to have a very, very small group of people watching your show.
That's what happens, because when you try to appeal to absolutely everyone and make it so unbelievably inclusive that absolutely everyone is represented and all of that, then in the end, you're not going to appeal to anyone.
There's something called narrowcasting, where they try to focus in on the exact audience they want, and they're just trying way too hard. They're just trying to. Remember Spinal Tap? We're not going to saturate New York, but with Philly, that's a real rock and roll town. Oh yeah, But that's what it's like now. They're so focused on this one demographic, the 18 to 35-year-olds who watch things like Rick and Morty and watch Game of Thrones, that it's just blowing everything up in the process.
Yeah.
All right.
And moving on with the super chats, so that.
But Rob did have to leave real quick.
Yeah, I gotta jump, guys, so you can get through these a lot faster without me.
Yeah, we did actually manage to go on about this a lot longer than initially had planned. But take care, Rob, and thank you for
see you guys later. See you at Retroblasting. See ya.
Anyway, moving on. ActionCom says, remember the Next Generation Season 1 when the men were wearing dresses? What's the difference between then and now? And will we look back with just as much mirth? Yeah, that's a good question. And Miranda Sinistra sent us $5 saying, in response to some earlier debaters, it's ridiculous to say that by denying the label of cisgender is to erase transgender. Transgender has existed prior to cisgender.
That's kind of what I was kind of like. Why do we need to create more and more words? And that kind of goes like with George Carlin said, we got more words to describe, swear words or lewd words or words that we don't, want to say out loud than we actually have those words. It's like you get to a point where it's like, why is there so many words to describe one thing? And I've seen enough people say it in the chat. Like, I get where, and I totally respect, where that individual is coming from, but I really just don't see the point. I mean, if heterosexual already means the same thing, creating another word is just that, creating another word. I don't understand. I maybe I'm not grasping it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we probably were not, but then again, it's not made for us, like some other things. So yeah, moving on, Mr. Tickletrunk sent us another $5 Canadian saying, they say they're about inclusion. They only exclude. It's a textbook example from Rules for Radicals. Our commonalities were the focus in old Trek. Yeah, this is true. Star Trek is now a divisive property, not a uniting one. I think it will be very difficult to disagree with that. And Rude Artist sent us $4.99 saying, my issue with the word cis is that it sounds like a slur. William Jones sent us $5 saying, why do you guys rag on Kurtzman so much? That man is an inspiration to all the kids who rode the little special yellow bus back in the day.
Do note the little winky face there too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I trust that they must have. I'm not going to even speculate. That's something for the Americans, I guess. So.
It's always comforting to know that even if only ironically, there are people who will defend those that are circling the toilet bowl.
I'm still lost, so I'm just going to move on.
Yeah, I'll explain after the show.
Yeah. And then we can move on to the next topic. And let's see, where was next? Oh, you'll like this, Tom. Sent us $4.99 saying, OG Trek always addressed an ethical dilemma that could result in prejudice. Newer Trek doesn't do this and is oppressive in its thinking. Rama sent us 100 Indian rupees saying, is it just me, or every time these woke franchise ruining people open their mouths, the argument for gatekeeping / protecting our hobbies gets stronger? Yeah, sadly, they are the gatekeepers, aren't they?
But that's the whole thing. Is the gatekeeping thing is a cyclical thing. It's back and forth. The people accusing somebody of gatekeeping are themselves gatekeeping in their own way by saying that. I've had these arguments with people at Dragon Con for the last 2 or 3 years. I've admittedly never gotten anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's probably the place you're going to end up with the debating things like that, where you have like a fundamentally different perspective where one side will not be won over to the others.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then moving on.
Stephen Walton does point out here that, excuse me, short buses are now called cis transports. So I don't know about that. That excludes an awful lot of people there, Stephen.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want to be exclusionary like Star Trek.
No.
And X Morbius sent us $5 saying, wanted to give background on cis. It's now a politicized term, but it has roots in Latin on the same side and was first used with gender in 1914. That's interesting. I did not know that, but it doesn't surprise me that it came, certainly not that it came from Latin. And Mr. Tickle Trunk sent 2 more consecutive super chats. First one saying, the heterosexual MacLeod episode was to more easily show heterosexual people what it's like for some homosexual people, and the panel just praised it. And then
there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you can do it. You don't have to shove it. Here's the thing.
It's great Star Trek. That's how
there's a difference. You do it with storytelling. You do it in a way, and that's what we've said a million times over, is like, you get the audience to think, and you don't tell them what to think. Yeah. You just let them think. And that's where Orville shines, is it presents an idea. It doesn't always conclude nice and cleanly, because there's always this open end sometimes to what the right answer is not exactly an easy answer. So the audience is left with their own, information that they've gotten from the episode to decide for themselves. And it's the same thing with Trek. Go ahead.
I agree completely. That's exactly what I mean. It takes a balanced view, and what it does is that it takes the position that you or that many in the audience may not necessarily sympathize with, and then they make the audience, those not sympathetic to that point of view, see it from that point of view, which is what changes mind. And they do that through storytelling, which is something Star Trek is sadly lacking in these days. And then he followed up with, love these streams. You all give good brain. Oh, why? Thank you, I guess. And Douglas Nelson sent us $2 saying, the point of dividing people is conquest. Very good observation. And Theodore McCarthy sent another $10. Labels aren't the problem. People put labels on everything. That's why language exists. It's manipulation of language to mislead people, which is the problem. Hard to disagree with that. And on a completely different matter, Diego Flores sent us 33 Peruvian Soul saying, guys, have you seen the documentary on Netflix, The Dilemma of Social Media? Started watching it yesterday with my girlfriend, and it horrified me because it explains everything happening now. No, I have not seen it, but I will certainly make a point to do so. And with that, guys, let's move on to the next topic. Because outside of Star Trek, maybe there came more when I was. Let me refresh and see if there's.
There's at least one or two more, maybe.
Just to get. Rob Altis said short buses are real buses too. And Forza Jersey says Trek has only been pushy leftist BS. Berman made it tolerable. TOS is only beloved because it was novel. It would be considered garbled SJW trash today. That I disagree with.
I was going to say, you've done a video kind of talking about that before.
I have. So please refer to my Picard post-mortem
Yeah,
for
this
a
is
detailed point of view of why I disagree with that.
Yeah, this is about knowing who your friends are and remembering, like don't turn around and shoot your longtime allies just because you feel like you're surrounded now. Classic Trek is very much different from what we're dealing with today. Let's not sugarcoat it.
Yeah, it could not be more different.
I think the way you put it best, Andre, though, was that Trek has always been humanitarian.
Yeah.
Not woke.
Yeah,
I think
those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Woke is not humanitarian, not in the slightest. Humanitarian is humanitarian. That is what TOS was. That certainly is my point of view, and I will argue it till the cows come home.
And also, while a number of episodes of all the Star Trek series in TNG and TOS did occasionally deal with the dilemmas of the main crew, most of the time it was the crew going out to find the story, and then the story happening to them. Whereas now in storytelling across the board, it seems to be, whether you're talking about movies or TV, I've noticed an over-indexing on the central character is the story and everybody around them is just serving their story. And I get that that's also a mythological archetype in some ways, but we seem to have taken it to a place where it's the whole, this central character is special in every way and is flawless and OP and everybody. And so we've lost the plot. Literally, we've lost the plot.
Yeah. And it's a bit different when you have something like Buck Rogers, where he's the focal point, as opposed to Star Trek, where the focal point is always shifting.
Yes. And Buck Rogers, as soon as that first miniseries is over, it's Buck then going out to find the adventure or the story that doesn't have much to do with him. Yeah, that first movie is about him, but then in the next film or the next miniseries, it's about him trying to liberate a planet of enslaved people. Right. And so it's less about him and more about them.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
Just going to get through the last ones real quickly, and then we will move on. Blue Satoshi helped me out, saying, in case you're wondering, Andre, the little special yellow bus, aka the short bus, is a school bus for special kids. That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have it confirmed. And Rama sent us another 100 rupees, saying, well, I binge watch all 7 seasons of DS9. Well, I could barely stomach 5 episodes of Picard. That should say it all. Old Trek is superior to new Trek. Hell yes, it is. And that has to do with the writing and the ability to stay true to the source material and stay true to the vision of the creator and what made the property special to begin with. Now, there was someone else that made that point recently, namely Neil Gaiman, or maybe it's pronounced Gaiman, just to stay on topic. But in either event, Retroblasting, would you like us to take us through that story?
Sure. Yeah. This was in response to, and you guys keep me honest here because I might lose a detail here and there, but this was in response to the trailer for The Watch, and The Watch is based on Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels. It's a new live action series that's coming out, and the trailer. For those of you that don't know what Discworld is, Discworld was a fantasy comedy that Terry Pratchett wrote in a series of novels set in the Discworld. And The Watch looks more, cyberpunk than fantasy. It does not have its medieval roots in any way. And Rihanna Pratchett, the late Terry Pratchett's daughter, she came on to Twitter and said, in a very non-aggressive way, she just said, this trailer, does not have any of my dad's DNA in it from the Discworld novels, from the Watch novels. There's nothing in there of my father. And then Neil Gaiman supported that by saying something to the effect of, and I can't remember exactly, but basically what he said was, when you are making something that has a fan base, a devoted fan base and you make it unrecognizable to those fans, that's a problem, because then those fans are not going to be interested in watching. He said something to that effect, and that's
he basically compared it with Batman if he was a detective in a yellow coat with a pet bat.
Yes, exactly. You can't expect fans to just show up for everything that has the label of the thing they love on it, because the reason they love it is not the label. The reason they love it is the way the content is presented and the way the world was set up. And if you change that entire world, and it's funny because we're just coming off this whole Star Trek thing, which is largely the same problem. You can't expect the fans to just show up like, good little lab rats. It won't work. And I agree with him. And I also agree with Rihanna Pratchett because, we'll get into that in a minute. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that those were some very good points. I made them myself in a video from last Thursday, I believe it was, where we covered just this. So if you haven't seen it, look at that. I believe it was called Discworld, but it's cyberpunk. Good times. But Retroblasting, tell us more about your love of Discworld and your thoughts on the Watch, since you've obviously seen the trailer.
Yeah, I've always loved fantasy novels. Whether it was Lord of the Rings, I was reading The Hobbit when I was in the 3rd grade, and when I found out about Terry Pratchett, because I also always loved Mel Brooks. And I loved Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So when I moved to England in 1990 as a 12-year-old, and suddenly they were publishing the books here in the States, but they weren't as in my face as they were when I lived in England. He was a bigger presence there. And I found out this is like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or the Mel Brooks of fantasy. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to read these. And so I started reading The Color of Magic and Sorcery and all of those books about Rincewind and the barbarian whose magic sword is smarter than he is. And I mean, it was a beautiful, hilarious series of books. Death is always at Rincewind's heels. I remember a scene from one of the books where Rincewind finds himself trying to get away from some threat. And so he's climbed a tree, and he's hanging from a branch, and, Death just appears hovering in the air next to him, disregarding the threat. And he's like, you could just let go. Because he has like this obsession with Rincewind. He wants Rincewind, this wizard, to die. And Rincewind's always arguing with Death. And then, of course, when I became a teenager, the point and click adventure came out on PC, where you could play Rincewind, who was voiced by Eric Idle. And so I bought that game as well and played it. But these are fantasy novels with a lot of inspired yet disparate elements brought into them. But it is still very much set in a fantasy world. While the Watch, which is inspired by the guys who guard the gates at the city of Ankh-Morpork, they were side characters that were so popular they got their own attention, and now they're trying to do a television show about the Watch, and I do not know what I'm looking at. I'm not sure what this is. This trailer looks more cyberpunk than it does Terry Pratchett fantasy. It seems like, once again, a Hollywood company has taken the name, or in this case, I believe it's the BBC. They've taken the name that they want. They've taken the series, and then they've just thrown their own uninspired thing into it and hope it will sell. Now, again, we always hope we're wrong in these kind of assessments, but by this point, we can read these trailers, and there's nothing in there that I'm interested in watching. Maybe I'm being unfair. I don't know.
Yeah, as for my point of view, had it not been Discworld, and I'm only vaguely familiar with Discworld, but I know that it's supposed to be in a medieval setting,
yes,
not a cyberpunk setting, not a steampunk setting. And the moment that you change it into that, then I think, okay, so basically This is Conan the Barbarian with guns. I can accept that in a fun Marvel comic on the side, but I can't accept that in a proper high-end adaptation. So I just apply that to it, and then I'm out.
Yes, exactly. And the saddest part of all this is that Rihanna Pratchett coming out and rightfully saying that none of my father's DNA from Discworld is in this trailer. There is a mirroring effect there, because for those of you that don't know, in the chat, Rihanna Pratchett is the writer of the rebooted Tomb Raider video game series that started back in 2013 from Crystal Dynamics or thereabouts. And I had the pleasure of I'm a huge Tomb Raider fan. I am to Tomb Raider. Lara Croft is to me what Conan is to Andre. And I wrote her after I played the first game, because I was real nervous when I saw that trailer, because much like when I saw the trailer for the Watch, I was really nervous, not in the sense that the setting was wrong, but I was just worried about, have they taken this and turned it into, Lord of the Flies or something like that. And after I played through the game as a lifelong Tomb Raider fan, I realized, no, Rihanna Pratchett's very smart, and she knew exactly what Lara Croft's character was, and it was all in there. And then by the time you do the second game, Lara's right there with you. Then, unfortunately, Rihanna Pratchett left the series before the third game, and the third game was very pablum and by the numbers, and it was a big letdown. But I wrote her after I played the first game because I was so impressed, and she wrote me back talking about how important it was that character be brought through purely. In other words, she understood the audience that loved Tomb Raider and loved Lara Croft. And so then you see her trying to point out that, these producers, these showrunners missed that fundamental point. Like, the fans of Discworld, they know what that world is. And you've just lost a measurable percentage of them by doing this weird, unnecessary spin on this story. The first time we get a high budget Discworld, series, and you guys don't give us the quintessential Discworld, that's a real disappointment. And it was so avoidable. It was so avoidable.
Yeah, as I said, she condemned them without actually condemning them in words.
Yes, and rightfully so. And then when Neil Gaiman, of course, comes to support her as well, he's a guy who, as we both know, has also not only done credible, or not credible, but should I say accurate adaptations of his content, but then after he's done that, he's gone off and said, here's an alternative look at this thing I did. But he never leaves us without the accurate adaptation. By and large, I know there have been some people who would disagree, but I think by and large he's been pretty true to his content.
I have one example on that. Mm-hmm. Sandman. You have the original comics, and then you are getting a miniseries from Netflix. And this miniseries from Netflix, he has been very, very clear. There will be some level of deviance from the source material. Exactly how, we do not know, but there will be some level of deviance from it. However, to counter that, we got the audiobooks, and they are amazing, and they are literal adaptations of the comic books. So then we have basically two identical versions, and then it's easier to swallow some level of difference in the Netflix version. That's kind of how you do it.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and to that point, Rihanna did the same thing with Tomb Raider. She knew how to adapt it as well for a modern, not retelling, but to keep the franchise relevant and to keep it active while not sacrificing the main character. It's clear that her growing up with her dad, who was friends with Neil Gaiman, was probably a good thing for her own development of narrative sensibilities. I have nothing but respect for Pratchett, Gaiman, and Rihanna Pratchett. And so to see this happen with the Watch is staggering. I mean, it really, it really just, it depresses me a little bit, because I was looking forward to this. was looking forward to the moment where we would have a Discworld series, and this is not it at all.
Luckily, there is another in development. My only worry is, will that even get made, depending on the backlash to this?
Well, is it? Do we know if this Discworld version is going to actually be in the fantasy setting, or is it something where they're trying to tie it to the Watch, kind of like they said we're doing a bet? Oh, okay.
The other one that is coming is something that was announced in May, and this is something that was announced very much so by Rihanna Pratchett, and they stressed that this would be 100% true to Terry Pratchett's original vision, and then they took very meticulous care not to reference either the BBC or the Watch by a single word, which I take as casting major shade on them.
Yeah, that fills me with some encouragement. If Rihanna's stamp of approval is on this, I'm far more confident that this will come off better. I hope it does. I hope it does get to launch now that I've heard that. Yeah,
fingers crossed for that. But let's move on to our final main topic of today.
Well, should we grab those couple super chats that are left over first? Real quick?
That is a good. That's actually a very, very good idea. Let's do that first. Yeah, always a good idea. Give me a second to refresh here to make sure I get them all. Here we go. Mr. Tickletrunk sent us $2 Canadian, and be sure to weigh in on this one, Michael. If you want real Discworld, watch Going Postal, because there have been a couple of miniseries on Discworld already, haven't there?
Yes, that's true. And I'm sorry, you know what? I just became the thing that I didn't like. Sitting there talking about how they don't remember Star Trek from before 2009, and then I forgot about that. So thank you. I stand corrected. That's correct. I guess I've been so caught up in all the movie news right now that I've lost the legacy a little bit.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. They were all very low budget measures, so
yes.
Of course they exist, but we still haven't gotten like that. The definitive live action version of Discworld.
No, and yeah. It is a book series that has been successful enough that it could justify a big budget adaptation. There's no reason, that it should.
The way that I see it is, if we were to compare with Lord of the Rings, what we have gotten in terms of Discworld is we've gotten the equivalent of the Rankin and Bass animation of The Hobbit and the Ralph Bakshi animation of Lord of the Rings, but we haven't gotten the Peter Jackson movies.
No, you are right. You are right.
And the Watch could have been it, and it wasn't.
Oh yeah, the Watch could have been it, and again, that's the big. It's like, guys, you haven't even stepped up to the plate yet, and you've already struck out. Like, this is so embarrassing. Yeah,
I feel your pain. I had that pain following the development of the 2011 Conan movie, but that's for another video. Yeah,
starring Aquaman,
starring Surfer Dude from Hawaii, as he was known at the time.
Yeah, it was an embarrassing experience, and I flushed most of it. All I remember is some of the gratuitous nudity at the beginning and a digital cave at the end. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, those were the good parts. Anyway, Diego Flores, he sent a follow-up to the mini documentary he mentioned earlier, The Dilemma of Social Media. Andre, when you watch the documentary, do a roundtable, because I believe the discussion could be spread from that point and help fight the SJW agenda. Yeah, we shall see. We shall see what we do. Of course, we're not necessarily against fighting any particular agenda here. We're about fighting for preserving the legacy and integrity of the genre properties that we love. But one thing does not have to rule out the other, as I always like saying.
Maybe if we can find a way to bring in entertainment into the equation, possibly. Yeah.
I'm sure there will be ways of doing that, but we'll see. No promises, but we'll see. Eric B sent us $10. Human beings are the sum total of genetic predisposition and environment. Procreation is part of that genetic predisposition, so the question is, will homosexuality be a thing in the future? Yes, it will, because you have the nature, so that's not going anywhere. That's you have that in the animal kingdom and everything, and you have had it now, and you've always had it. So yeah, that'll still be there in the future. And Not a Banned Account sent us $1.99. Will we explore Lieutenant James Kirk's gay romances? That can happen before you know it. We know that they have been considering that, and I very much doubt that they gave up on that idea. And following up on...
Maybe there's another reason why he's called
on
Bones.
that, yeah. Loquacious Primate sent us $5 saying the cis/trans dichotomy was used in organic chemistry first. A cis molecule has groups on the same side of a C equals C bond. Trans has them opposing. Well, there you go. There's examples from actual science and not just ideology. But yeah, and the last one takes us straight to our next topic. Grey Ghost FM sent us $10 saying, remember when Masters of the Universe was barely He-Man? Or in Mario Brothers, Luigi was played by a Latino man. The difference when fans complained about those is that they weren't called toxic or racist. So yeah, there's a very, very big difference in how criticism of the creative choices are handled
and
today.
before we jump into that, we just got another one here from Stargate 404, and I can address this real quick. He says, can you speak on the rumors that STD has been renewed? It has been renewed. We've never really said it's ever been canceled. In fact, we've kind of stood by this whole, like, it probably got a 5-season deal to begin with. The real question now is whether or not they'll be able to start filming by the November 2nd start date for season 4.
Yeah,
because we've known about that for about a month now.
Yeah, we have, and we are actually working on a video about that right now. And just to be clear, what we have said before is that we had heard rumors that that season 3 might be the last one, and that reshoots were done to provide a series ending, which the original shoot did not do. What that means is that they had the opportunity of both closing right there and carrying on for another season, depending on whether or not funding for another season would appear. Now they've announced season 4, which would appear that they have gone with the route of funding came up, and they are proceeding.
And Clarice started shooting too, so
yeah, that was never in doubt. I
think this has more to do with Paramount Plus and a few things, but I think we'll find out more as we get going.
Yeah, so we are working on a video about that.
But Salvador sings Retroblasting. I just probably butchered that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Sal is actually the guy that runs 2 Cents Toys on YouTube.
Oh,
and,
yes.
He does great modern toy reviews, and he will be all over this He-Man thing that we're about to talk about. I guarantee it.
Perfect timing for Leo Convoy's reviews. $4.99 super chat. He says, I'm a simple man. I see Retroblasting. I click on the video. Well, you're in the right place then. Because,
yes, indeed.
I managed to get Michael here this morning, and this is one thing we wanted to talk to him about. One of the many things if we got a little bit of time here left. So, Andre, go ahead and head this off here.
Yes. Because as we see, things are not great for Discworld fans right now. Things are not great for Star Trek fans. Things are not great for fans of Doctor Who, and things are not great for fans of Star Wars. What about He-Man, though? Because we haven't really gotten anything new He-Man for many, many, many years. But now we're about to get loads. First and foremost, there is Masters of the Universe Revelation from Kevin Smith, which is a continuation of the original Filmation series, only a little bit more grown up and with some more mature animation and stuff. So so that should be awesome. We still have the movie starring Noah Centineo coming. And then on top of that, there's a 3D animated series for kids. So loads of He-Man to look forward to in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Yeah.
But will this all be as good as we hope and pray it will be? Or is it going to take another detour into Discworld, Star Trek, Doctor Who territory? Retroblasting. Your thoughts on that? First, how excited are you? And do you think we have a reason to be?
Well, I'll tell you this much first and foremost. I am working on a video right now about the just released Masters of the Universe Origins figure line from Mattel. And this ties into what we're talking about. It is, I'll just preview my opinion on it. It is an excellent toy line. It is excellent. It's like Mattel has figured out, oh, we need to appeal to kids with this property because that's what the property was originally created for, as well as the adult fans. And the adult fans are going to love the property because they've loved it since they were kids. And so if we continue to aim this property at the right demographic, everybody will enjoy it. It'll be a general audience's success. That's at least what I'm hoping. What I'm hoping they're thinking. And so when I see that you have Kevin Smith updating the Filmation show, saying, for the adults in the room who remember the Filmation show, we're going to keep going with it and we're going to update it for your age group. But there's also going to be this other show over here that's for the 8 to 12-year-olds. I think that is a brilliant gamble. I think that is the way to go because you're covering all your bases without alienating the other group, because there is this demand among Gen X. And I talked about this recently on another podcast. There is this demand from the Gen X generation to carry their franchises with them into adulthood. And that's where we've gotten into a lot of trouble recently. We see, He-Man as ours and we see Ninja Turtles as ours. And so we demand that these creators update them because now we're 37, 38, 40. We're no longer 10, 11. Whereas in the past, something like Superman or Batman would just stay in the 8 to 13-year-old world. That those comic books that your grandfather read were for 8 to 12-year-olds. When my dad read them in the 50s and 60s, they were for 8 to 12-year-olds. They didn't update for my grandfather, who was now in his 30s. All that to say, I think that this has the best chance of succeeding because they are cognizant of that, because they're saying, we've got this to continue the story that the adults remember from when they were kids. We've got this for the new kids that are jumping on board. And we've got this amazing toy line that we are actually going to put in stores and make available. So I'm hopeful. I know that was a long way around, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I also have to say I'm a big fan of the approach that they're taking with the 3 different iterations.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the Kevin Smith continuation, which is fantastic because this is exactly what the fans have been wanting for the last 20 years. All the time that we've been trying to get a He-Man movie off the ground. Everyone has been saying, well, just do an animated movie instead. Well, here it is. And it's going to be better than anything we hoped. And yeah, you see Tom, he has all the toys right there. And then, of course, to bring in the kids, you have this 3D animated thing. I hope it's going to be a huge success because it's for kids. Bring in a new generation, because any property that cannot do that is going to stagnate and then disappear. It only takes one generation lost and the property is gone.
Yes, it does. It can die in one generation. I mean, yeah. That's the gamble with this, of course. And somebody, just said in the chat that, the Kevin Smith writing can be kind of shady, and that is true to a degree, but you do have
the showrunner. He's not the only writer.
Exactly. You have a multi-pronged approach, and you have some checks and balances. So there's no open and closed thing. Like if I was told, they gave He-Man to Zack Snyder and he's got complete creative control over it, and he's doing one show or one movie, then I'd be like, oh, we're doomed. There's no way. But this is a 3-pronged approach with the live action movie and 2 different series aimed at 2 different audiences. which there will definitely be cross-pollination there because some people are such huge He-Man fans, they will watch both. I have a lot of hope that of these three prongs, not all of them will fail. You know, like if one of them's a little lackluster, maybe the other two will be really good, you know, or maybe one will break out from this trifecta. But I'm not going to harshly prejudge any of it. Am I the biggest Kevin Smith fan? No, I'm not. But again, with this approach that Mattel is taking, they're not putting all their eggs in Kevin Smith's basket. And so that's what gives me hope. And I am always hopeful that something that's being worked on, regardless of who's behind it, will be good. Yeah. I don't want something to be terrible simply because Kevin Smith is doing it or whatever. I don't hate Kevin Smith. Even if Zack Snyder was to come out with a movie tomorrow, I'm not wishing failure on it. I want it to be good because, you know, it could be a Superman movie or something, you know? So yeah, I'm very hopeful. I think Mattel has their head in the right place with this, where some of their competition has not. Maybe they've learned from what other people have bungled. We'll see.
We can hope.
Yeah, I may or may not have two of each of those and Battle Cat and stuff like that. But anyway.
Yeah. I will say one thing for Revelation, though. Have you ever seen a better, more impressive cast list than that? Like, it reminds me of Dune and how amazing the voice cast is for that animated continuation of the Filmation series. I remember I was reading it when I was a guest appearing on my good friend Mr. H Reviews channel. And there we went through the voice cast, and like we were flabbergasted, both of us, at how incredibly good it was. What do you feel about the voice cast? Do you even remember who they are?
Yeah. Mark Hamill's doing. Isn't he doing Skeletor?
Yeah, he's doing Skeletor.
Yeah,
Mark Hamill is Skeletor.
Yeah, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is doing Tila.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember. I just looked it up the other day. King Randor is being played by the guy who did Batman on Brave and the Bold, who was in Drew Carey show. What's his name?
Diedrich Bader.
Yes, Diedrich Bader. He's doing King Randor.
And Trapjaw.
Yes. So I'm very hopeful that these are seasoned voice actors, meaning Mark Hamill and Diedrich Bader and a number of the others that are in it. I think the cast that they've lined up is great. And the fact that they're continuing the classic Filmation series with just new animation and new stories, to me, that speaks volumes. I don't see how this can hurt the franchise unless they just do something really wacky and off the wall, which it's hard to do that with Masters of the Universe, which is already a very outlandish series as it is. As long as you don't take them to Earth and have them eating fried chicken at a fast food restaurant, I think you're going to be in a safe spot. We've learned that lesson.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I have to highlight two more of the cast members that blew me away. Henry Rollins as Triclops and Lena Headey as Evelyn.
That's right.
How amazing is that going to be? Like, I just hope that the writing is completely up to par, that some of the rumors that we've heard are exaggerated, because I want this to be good. Like, seriously, we've lost almost every other franchise there is.
Yep.
So please don't take this from us. And as for me, He-Man means a lot. Mm-hmm. He-Man not only was my gateway into Conan, He-Man was my gateway into the English language and to genre culture in general. Because I grew up in Norway at the time when we didn't have anything. Like today, we have the same stuff that you do. But not at that time, not in the early 80s. We were very much in the backwaters. And then suddenly, one day, we got He-Man on satellite from England via the Sky Channel. And it was literally a revelation. What's this? Colors? Like, entertainment that isn't telling us how communism is great and everything, because that's the only thing that we had before. Like, the only thing that we had in colors before was like Fraggle Rock, and they were approved because they were good socialists. Yeah, seriously, you should see some of the stuff that I grew up with. And then came He-Man, and the contrast couldn't be larger. It was also my first meeting with the English language. Fun fact, my first English words were in an accent 10 times as atrocious as I have right now. By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. That was my gateway to English.
What was the reason that they approved Masters of the Universe then, if they were only approving things like Fraggle Rock? Did you ever get a read on that?
Control it. They couldn't control it because it was from satellite from England.
Ah, gotcha.
It wasn't broadcast in Norway at all. It was never broadcast in Norway. We got it from satellite. And of course, like every opinion leader and everyone were like horrified of like, what's this commercial stuff with colors and fairy tales and violence? And no, we need to have like more good stuff from Eastern Europe and from England with factory workers and Fireman Sam and neighbors doing home improvement and Ukrainian moles and stuff like that. Like that's good stuff that we need to show our kids, but they couldn't stop it. So yeah,
it's I've seen some people in the chat, talking about how they're not fans of Kevin Smith. And again, I'd just like to say I am not a Kevin Smith guy. I do think that he's kind of become a mouthpiece for the industry, but again, he has been given the reins of Masters of the Universe, and I don't want to see Masters of the Universe fail. So right now I'm holding out hope that it will be good,
I'm actually a huge Smith fan. I mean, I get it. He's sold out quite a bit in the last few years. But I mean, I just bought Mallrats again last week, for fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they re-released it through Arrow. I mean, I think a lot of times, I mean, even though and I'm not trying to make excuses for him at all, but I feel like a lot of times, he's good at playing the mouthpiece, but he'll stick a lot of his real feelings sometimes in his comedy or some of his characters to say and other things. So, like, if you've seen Jay and Silent Bob reboot, or, I mean, even look at Clerks 2 and a few other places, like, once in a while he'll throw some shade at things that he's normally, said great things about. So, it's, I think he knows that he is exactly what he is.
Yeah. Which we wouldn't have predicted given his... I would never have predicted that he would have suddenly become the mainstream mouthpiece hype man, given how he started his career. Because he started his career as a very anti-establishment filmmaker, and suddenly here we are. That's what shocks me the most, to watch his evolution. But as far as his Masters of the Universe project is concerned, because it's Masters of the Universe, I wish it nothing but success. I hope it does real well. And like Andre said, similarly, it was one of the first franchises I was into. I think the first, not including Superman and Spider-Man, just as concepts, the first three things I really enjoyed as a kid were Dukes of Hazzard, Star Wars, and Masters of the Universe. Like those were the three. Yeah.
Add in Superman, and that's my earliest memories are like seeing Superman 2 on television, Star Wars on TV. Then eventually my dad sitting me down one day and he's like, sit here. And I'm like, what? I got to watch I Love Lucy. I don't want to watch this crap.
Right.
And the next thing you know, it's, I have the power. The whole opening in my mind was blown from that point on, just like Andre's, because, I'm this little 3-4-year-old and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
It's my toys come to life.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, and a lot of people are asking some great questions, and I wish we had more time to answer all of them. But like I know somebody asked if the series was ever coming to Blu-ray. It may, but sadly, if it ever does, it'll have to be in some kind of up-converted version because let's tell
the story again so that those of you who do not know can share our pain and misery. There is nothing that I would like more than to. Well, of course, there are many things I would like more, but of something I would really, really like is to have the original Filmation series in full HD in Blu-ray, like ideally 2160p. It's gonna look amazing. If you have seen some original animation from the 80s that you saw on VHS and stuff, and then see the thing in HD, it's a complete and total revelation, pun intended. But with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, we will unfortunately never have that. Tom, share the story.
Well, you see, a few years back, Hallmark bought all of the He-Man series, I think along with a few other things, including She-Ra and stuff from Filmation, which had gone out of business, I believe, at that point. And they transferred all the tapes that they had at the time for syndication, I believe it was, to digital, and they tossed out all the film masters because they took up too much room. And this was so far in the past that HD wasn't necessarily something people had in their they were looking forward to at that time. And unfortunately, they just don't exist unless somebody uncovers some film dupes somewhere at some point, possibly. At this point, we're pretty much screwed for getting any HD versions of these shows.
Not only that, my understanding is that not only were they transferred digitally to the simplest that they had at the time, which was standard definition, which is low resolution by modern standards, it was the PAL version that they transferred. So you even have the 10% PAL speed up in there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of issues with the several DVD releases over the years. Like the best of the bunch was the one done by, I think, Classic Media or something like that, like 10 years ago now. Because now Universal owns them, and their recent DVD releases were nothing but a clusterfuck. There's episodes where they're all stretched and skewed. And then some, I guess, are cropped off even. And still flattened. It's been a mess, and Universal still hasn't replaced them as far as I know. So I apologize to anybody who's picked up those sets and gotten those crappy versions. But yeah, like at this point, unless they come up with some algorithm that can, and with animation, it's got a better possibility than something like actual film. And I know, Michael, you've covered this quite a bit too in one of your wonderful videos where you talk about, the difference between HD and how things are filmed too. So I know you're up to speed on a lot of this stuff too, but like that's the thing. Unless we can find an animation might be easier to do with this algorithm, but I'm not so sure about live action stuff because animation doesn't have as much detail. Like this here that I got on the screen, this is actually a scan from a cell. Like there's a few cells that exist here and there, but the show is not nearly the quality that I'm showing you guys here right now.
Right. Yeah. And I was shown a photo a few weeks ago by somebody who said that there are NTSC tape masters of this that still exist, but as far as film negative, there's been no evidence. The idea being that the film masters, the film outs are probably long gone. So there may actually be NTSC master tapes over in the UK as well as PAL tapes. But there is no negative anymore. And that's the real tragedy. But like you were saying, Tom, animation, especially animation of that style where it's got clean lines, I bet you an AI program could do significant wonders with that would be far more complex with a live action piece of footage or even an anime piece of footage that's got a lot more detail built into it. I think with something that clean and simple, I think AI could do wonders with that.
Yeah, the only thing they got to look out for is like some things Disney has run into already, where they're cleaning and scrubbing has actually cleaned and scrubbed out lines.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I heard about that. It's like, guys, do some quality control. Seriously. Yeah.
And to address a point from Grim 2, who said that they transferred it to PAL because of the superior PAL quality. This is true. I come from PAL lands myself. Problem is that within that process, you get the PAL speed up of 10%, something like that.
On the old stuff to get and that was just because of stuff that was imported to catch up to the frame rate, is my understanding. Because over here it was 24 frames for film. I think 30 frames for television. Michael, am I wrong? Or
yeah, it's over here. It's was 29.97 for video, and now there's like 60i here versus 50i over in Europe. So there's still this difference. 24 frames per second is one of the Blu-ray standards, and then 50i on Blu-ray for video over in Europe versus 60i video. So a lot of things that have run into problems with that. In order to try and not have to split the marketplace, in order to say, well, we don't want a 50i master and a 60i master for the same thing. Some of these television shows like David Tennant's Doctor Who run, things like that, they've been converted onto Blu-ray as 24 frames a second, which messes it up for both markets. because now it's been ripped out of its video format, and it's been, I don't know what you call that, pulled down or whatever you call it. And
I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. And so over in United States, it's slowed down by like 4% as far as the visual motion. And then they use a computer to repitch the audio back up so you can't tell. And then over in the UK, they get the 24 frames a second thing as well. And they're looking at it going, this doesn't look right. Like there's something wrong with it. Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to explain, but I'm not good with maths.
Oh, no, it's fine. I too am not good with the maths.
But
so.
no, and that's kind of the problem you run into. But it would be nice, hopefully someday, that a lot of these classic TV shows that were mastered on tape, especially the animated ones from our youth, hopefully they'll be able to upgrade them soon, because I've seen some of these classic releases from things from like the Jetsons and stuff like that look amazing. And it's like, God, if we can just get some of these from the 80s cartoons, like I'm sure I got to imagine they still got the masters for like Transformers and G.I. Joe. Those probably were well taken care of than some of the other stuff, because I'm pretty sure the Shout Factory release looks like it must have been from an HD master, but I could be wrong.
No. I mean, they are very clean for what I'm seeing on them, and of course, they did find a way to get the negatives out for the Transformers movie and do the recent Steelbook, and then I can't remember if the G.I. Joe movie Blu-ray is also from the negative or not. I would assume it is, but I have to go back and watch it.
I believe it is, at least in HD anyway, or from an answer print, if not.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if they still have the old film masters for the shows, is what I'm curious about. But
well, like you said, the DVDs from Shout Factory for those shows do look markedly less videotapey than the He-Man DVDs.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to say, oh, I think they are, and then be wrong.
Right.
You know how it is.
Right. Yeah. That's the challenge with Voltron, for example. It's like Voltron, they had some videotape runs made of Golion, and Toy Animation sent those over back 10 or 15 years ago when they did those DVDs, so that they could recut the show together in HD rather than in, broadcast videotape.
Right.
But now it's like, well, how are we going to get that in HD? Because you guys took those HD masters, but cut it at 480p for DVD. So now you're going to have to rebuild the show again if you want it on Blu-ray. And now with Blu-ray sales being down, what's the cost benefit analysis? It's a whole thing.
There's at least a streaming element that's there that
right.
That's a possibility. But again, I think I want to. You've been here a lot longer than we normally do these shows, Michael. I want to thank you so much for your time. No, you're not. Don't apologize at all. I just want to round this out so we can get going here, because you've been so. Normally these shows only go like an hour, 90 minutes, but you've been here this whole time, and we could talk about this all day long, and we want to definitely have you back. We do have some super chats to catch up on, and we don't want to hold you up too much longer.
Go for it. Do your thing. Go for
it. Super chats. The most recent one and topical one is Salvador, who sent us $4.99 saying, G.I. Joe better taken care of. The recent crap from Has-Been has determined that to false.
Has-Been. There's a new one for you, Michael.
Nice one. Very
well. Yeah, and that's what I wanted, is a few minutes for you to be able to address some of these, because I know you've done a lot of reporting on like the Hasbro situation, and I was just talking to Andre about this the other day when I brought you up as coming on as a guest about the whole HasLab thing and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and also the fact that they are taking franchises for their cinematic universe, of which they really are the creators of like 3 out of the proposed 5 or 6 or whatever it is, and of those 3 only 1 was a success. And so you're sitting back going, guys, Hasbro, like Salvador said, Hasbro has been at this point. They have a lot to prove going forward in the entertainment industry. They have not. Their track record, as we all know, is very slipshod.
Yeah, and I know we did want to talk a little bit about that whole thing too, but we'll have to save that, I think, for the next time. But yeah, like, if you want to check out any of the Hasbro coverage, check out Michael's channel. He has a lot of stuff over there about that, and some great videos for that matter. And our mods, Christy and Steven, have been dropping the link throughout the show, and if they'll drop it again, so you guys make sure you subscribe to Retroblasting. Michael does great work, so him and the team does over there. So
thank you very much.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we would love to have you to come back and discuss Hasbro and the Hasbro-verse on film that is upcoming with Mask and everything. I'd love to pick your brain on that.
I will make sure to bring a big bag of salt.
Ooh. So yeah,
That
we'll have to
sounds
try
good.
and set you up sometime for later this next month to come back for sure, for sure. Now we're gonna go back tackle these backwards order, Andre, or how you want to do this?
Well, I'll tackle them in the order they came in.
Okay.
'Cause there's none too topical on screen right now in this moment. Leo Convoy's Reviews sent us two $5 super chats back to back. First one saying, I'm a simple man. I see Retroblasting. I click on the video. And then he followed up with, Kevin Smith shouldn't be the one that worries you. Rob David is. He heads the new Revelation show and all the recent comics that sucked.
Yeah, Lio Convoy Reviews is a very honest channel with a lot of deep knowledge about animation and current animation crews and projects. You know, Thundercats and He-Man and Transformers and all that stuff. So anybody interested in animation, check him out.
I'm gonna subscribe right now.
I will be sure to check that out. I'd also to do some more interesting or research on Rob David, because he sounds like he should probably be on Midnight's Edge's radar, which he wasn't until the second, but he is now. So that's good.
Uh-oh. that's about like that's about as bad as The Godfather going, man, we should go have a talk with him and make him see things our way. Make him an offer he can't refuse. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it certainly means that it doesn't have to mean that a video is coming, but it certainly means that one is under consideration. And then, in reference to what we said about Mattel and Netflix doing good decisions on He-Man with the 3 separate shows, Rama sent us 40 rupees saying, a good show decision, shocked Pikachu face. While the hunky, chunky, funky, and I can't see the rest, but the hunky, funky, chunky,
funky monkey, I think it is.
Yeah, that's the one. Sent us £5 British. I have no faith in Smith. He is bought and sold by anyone that wants him. They could continue with the 2000 reboot. My God, how good was that?
Yeah, I would love to see that continue, but I also hope that this whole, like, because like what Michael was getting at is this, if you can do like even a 2 or 3 quadrant type thing and really get every base touched and it works, like this will gravitate towards getting like a Ninja Turtles adult type series and stuff, because they even do nothing but miss for kids when it comes to Ninja Turtles, and Ninja Turtles has been an evergreen franchise since it first came out. And of course you've done some great work on the toys as far, like that's where I think I first discovered you back in the day, Michael, was my love for Ninja Turtles. And you know, like that's the thing, is they didn't know that was going to be a big huge franchise that it was, and it's still living to this day, but they're destroying it slowly just like everything else by this constant rebooting and making it obnoxious and forgetting the core audience. And really, if you go and look at any of the merchandise out there, you can't find any of the new Turtle stuff, but you can find a whole lot of the classic stuff, right, Michael?
Yeah. There's always been this big problem over the last 5 years with NECA and Hasbro and people like that doing all these low production runs of these highly hyped toys, and the Ninja Turtles are no different. But also, like you said, Ninja Turtles has been mired in a kind of franchise mediocrity over the last few years. You know, Playmates hasn't really had a lot to work with coming from the Nickelodeon IP owner. They've had some really bad concepts come out of there. So Ninja Turtles is kind of, it's on fan life support, as I like to call it right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the goodwill of the fans keeping it afloat.
That seems a very apt description. Mr. Tickletrunk sent us another $2 Canadian. Thank you so much. Mark Hamill is slowly becoming our favorite characters. Yes, indeed, all of them.
Isn't it kind of weird?
Yeah. And Dr. Coffin Nails for $5. With all due apologies to Michaels, love your channel. Screw the toys. Are they going to release the original series on Blu-ray or re-release it on DVD? Yeah, that goes back to what we said already.
Yeah, we sadly already answered, or we are gladly already answered.
We already threw a cold bucket of water on that, didn't we?
Yeah, we don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, they can figure something out soon to fix that.
Yeah, let's hope that in that one thing, I'm all in favor of AI. And Leo Conway's reviews, again, so do check that channel out. I certainly intend to do so. I predict all 3 will fail because none of those goons understand He-Man. Look at how they handled him in comics. Edgelord garbage. Well, I hope you are wrong, but I look forward to exploring your point of view. But,
yeah, like I said, Leo Convoy is very honest and very brutal, but he knows his stuff. So even if you don't agree with him, you can't fault him for his facts.
Honest and brutal is something we're well known for.
Yes, I know. That's why I figured you guys would like him. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to check out his channel for sure.
Absolutely, and that's always something that we keep on saying as well. Just because you don't want it to be true doesn't mean that it isn't.
Dang right.
Yeah. Scuba Pete sent us $4.99. Very excited for all the new Masters of the Universe goodness. And here, because Michael said he'd break my arm if I didn't show up. So, yeah.
I didn't. But Scuba Pete is a good online friend, and I'm glad to see him here. Thanks for being here, Scuba.
Yeah, I always see him when I drop into the live chats on Saturdays and stuff. Definitely.
Awesome. And moving on to something completely different. Justin Proper for $2 asked me, Andre, what is your favorite type of cheese? I think I'm gonna say cheddar and Parmesan. Yeah.
You'd like Wisconsin.
Maybe.
That's pretty much the main 2 cheeses here besides American. It's like that and Colby.
And Mr. Tickle Trunk sent us to another one in reference to us having to call it the 9 soon. 2 more hours. Joe Rogan. Yeah.
What are you like? Are you trying to be all prim and proper in front of Michael here or something? I've been swearing.
No, you can swear all you want. I don't care.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to be good and proper for the YouTube algorithm.
We're way past that now.
That's what I do, Andre. That's what I do.
Back in their good graces.
Yes.
I heard now that it's used to be 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. Now it's down to 30 seconds, so I ain't so worried about it now.
Yeah. Well, I have learned to expect the unexpected and the frustrating when it comes with all of these matters.
Good policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I do believe that we are up to date with the Superman.
With the super chats, you mean?
With the super chats, I mean. I just read the comment that said Superman.
I hear you. I know. Yeah. And the fact that you can keep your English straight sometimes at this time of the evening, I'm sure is...
I just wish they would change the name of it to Superman's. We've got a Superman here from. That's awesome. I think I'm going to just bring that into my live stream.
We just lost Andre. Either his internet popped out or something happened there.
Oh,
that happens.
Up and away.
There he is. I figured he'd be back. There we go. What happened there? Hit the wrong button.
Yeah, kind of. So.
Yeah, he was just being a diva when I was picking on him about his English.
Yeah. Well, I actually have great humor about that, so feel free to pick and imitate as much as you want.
I honestly never pick on somebody who knows more of another foreign language than I do in reverse. So I'm just kind of like I have no ear for languages as much as I have no ear for chemistry, advanced math. So when I hear somebody who can actually speak my language back to me and I have to use Google Translate to try and talk to them in their language, you're never going to get any mockery from me, not once.
Well, I never mock him per se.
But I know. I'm just telling you.
I have a little fun with him.
Oh yeah, no, I know. It's just me being me.
Well,
Andre has had it with your Tom. He said.
Well, I wouldn't expect anyone to Google Translate their way through Norwegian. So
I just meant in like a chat situation before, when I did a video about this mask toy that I got. It was from a French customizer, and I was starting to translate my stuff in Google Translate into French so that we could chat back and forth about it more effectively, because he was trying in his English, but I knew he had a lot more English than I did French. And so I just thought, you know what? He's making the effort. I'm going to make the effort. So, yeah.
Yeah. Justin sends in another $2 super chat. Thank you so much. So, serious questions. Candy corn, yay or nay? Gentlemen, Michael, let's start with you.
Ate enough of it in the 80s to know I don't want any more to pass through my lips. So I'm going to say no.
Andre, have you even had candy corn before?
I have never heard of candy corn in my life. I'm Googling it right now. And the answer is no, I've never had it, so I'm going to vote blank on this one.
I'm not a fan of it, but I stand by my whole, like, it's not quite Halloween or Thanksgiving without a bowl of it sitting there, whether anybody eats it or not.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's
it's
true.
Kind of like one of those things.
Yeah, like those
generic canes at Christmas. Yeah.
Like those generic candies every Halloween that are just in like brown, black, and orange wrappers, and you're like,
peanut butter ones are good.
Yeah, that's what they are. Peanut butters. That's what they are. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like I said, they're kind of like candy canes. Yeah, they're just kind of part of the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you just put them in a bowl as decoration, then throw them away later. Yeah.
If I had to guess, though, Andre, you probably wouldn't like them.
Probably not. Looking at the picture, it doesn't look too appealing.
They're basically like marshmallow fluff mixed with sugar and wax coating.
Ugh.
And they taste like I've always described them as they taste mostly like dried frosting.
Oh, yeah. I would rather have those chalky hearts at Valentine's Day than candy corn.
And there's another example. Like, those are other things that nobody ever really eats, but they're always there.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Based on your description, it doesn't feel like I've missed out. So I'm quite happy to...
It's diabetes, the pill. Yes.
Run, Andre. Run. Yeah. Run far away.
But no, like I
think
said...
I'm good.
You've spent more than enough time with us here, Michael, and we appreciate it. Normally, like I said, we don't go this long, and I'm glad you were able to stick around, and we definitely want to have you back soon. Mr. Tickle Trunk sends in another Canadian $2, says candy corn is just formed icing. Yeah, that's basically it. Like I said,
all icing and no cake. Yeah, I think I'll pass.
But yeah, definitely you guys check out Michael's channel. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on real quick before we took off here today?
No, not at all. Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun. I've always loved Midnight's Edge. I'm a big fan of the channel. And
I apologize for Rob.
Oh, no, not at all. Rob's hilarious.
He's a bit abrasive and...
Oh yeah, like if I was to say I don't like abrasive people, that'd be the most hypocritical thing I'd ever said online. But thank you for having me, and I would love to come back. This has been a real treat. Thank you.
The pleasure is definitely all ours. Like I said, so Andre, anything you wanted to hit on before we left?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Retroblasting for coming over and gracing us with your presence. The pleasure is all ours, contrary to what you may say, and it's been awesome to have you here, and I look very, very much forward to having you back on to discuss the upcoming Hasbro-verse.
Can't wait.
The G.I. Joe movie and the Transformers and all the crossovers there and everything. So that should be good times.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
And Adam Wofford just sent us another $10 saying,
yes.
Back in the early 1930s, a company made 60 tons of candy corn. God, what drove them to that? But every year that people don't eat is used the following year. So all the candy corn has been made almost 100 years ago.
I don't know how accurate that is, but it may seem that way, definitely.
You know what? I've actually seen worse examples than that. I don't remember which one, but there's a chocolate that to this day apparently is being sold expired in the States because the original shipping that came from Europe spent so much time in the shipping that it went off by the time it got there. But people liked the flavor of it and got used to that. And so for forever after, they've let it basically expire before it's being sold in the States. Maybe it's an urban legend, but I heard something to that, and so it wouldn't surprise me.
Michael is slowly looking at the Tim Tam in his hand, wondering, is this the candy? Oh God!
And if Andre didn't have to go, we definitely would hang out a little longer. But check out Retroblasting, and we will definitely have him back here again soon. And we want to thank all you guys for the super chats and hanging out with us once again here on Midnight's Edge in the morning. And we'll be back on Wednesday, and the ladies will be back tonight. So do join us here tonight as well. Take care.